fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab.
Oh. Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. My name is Adrian Hernandez. I am here today with Jackie K, Ezra Potter, and surprise guest from DNVR Avalanche, Rudo. We are very excited to have you on today, Rudo. Thank you very much for joining us, my man.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Heck yeah. So, I mean, everybody knows Rudo talks Colorado Avalanche hockey, and that's what we do here on the Mile High Hockey Lab. So, folks, if you enjoy this broadcast, please head on over to our website, milehighhockey.com. Give all the content we have over there a browse. And, of course, share this broadcast that will be available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts right after the show with your fellow Avalanche fans. We have a few off-season topics, I guess you could call them. First of all, obviously, we saw Oliver Shillington sign for the Colorado Avalanche. We all got a lesson on how to pronounce his name recently on Twitter, so that's fun. We'll also talk about Mikko Rantanen's contract, what Lonzo Ball's status might mean for Landeskog, and of course, we'll do our bold predictions, open the conversation, and we're going to do something a little different with this offseason content I've dubbed the wheel of where were you. So basically, we'll spin the wheel of great Avalanche memories, and we'll all kind of sound off on where we were and our experience on that. So cool. Awesome. For the three of you, thank you so much for joining. Let's get into the Oliver Shillington signing and what that might mean for other D members for the Avalanche. Obviously, they got him for a one-year deal. Rudo, let's give you the honor since you're our brand new guest. What do you think this means for Malinsky's hopes of making a jump to the NHL this year?
It's going to be tough for Malinsky with that signing. This pretty much bumps him down to the number 8 spot, regardless of the guys they've signed. Who you think is the 7? Malinsky's going to be behind them. I love the kid. I think he deserves a shot, but it's getting harder and harder for him to get into the Avalanche lineup, just the way they are built. The additions of someone like a Shillington help cover some of those offensive impact roles that you would expect a Malinsky to help fill. And realistically, I just don't know that Bednar and the Avs will rely on someone on the defensive side enough like a Malinsky. For a bottom 4 defenseman in the NHL, realistically, unless you have a very specialized skill set, you need to penalty kill. And I don't know that Malinsky can do that. So it's a bit tough for him.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And Jackie, I want to bounce that one your way, because I know that you and me, I feel like more often than not, we really want to see these young guys get a shot. Do you still feel that way with these additions? Because that blue line's getting pretty crowded. And do you agree with Rudo on kind of the outlook for Malinsky?
I still think that it doesn't exactly add up adding another defenseman. Look, he's 26 years old. He's not the typical ELC prospect. Oh, we're trying to fit a 22-year-old in. Like, if he wasn't going to be on the team this year, what's the point? His waiver exemption's up. He's the guy that the scant little bit of content the organization has put out this offseason highlighted him again as the great college free agent signing. I just don't see it. He's one of the very few right-handers they have. They only have Manson, Makar, and Malinsky. That's it. They don't have a single other right-handed defenseman. I just don't think they're just going to waive him. For some reason, it still doesn't add up to me. Like, I get why are you signing these guys? Are you going to waive a Brandstrom? Are you going to waive Shillington? No, I don't think so either, but something's not adding up here. So what's the deal? If they just wanted depth, they could have done what they did with Caleb Jones last year. Wait for a guy to clear waivers from another organization, then you trade for him, you stash him in the AHL till you need him. So yes, there's the question, why do you need 8 signed NHL defensemen? So I don't think that automatically means that they've like just decided to move on from Malinsky, because like I said, it doesn't add up. I feel like there's probably an injury. That's the only reason why this makes sense to me. This is not the time of year that you trade someone. I don't think this is the Gerard trade that everyone's been hoping for the last 4 years. Like the ship sailed to trade Manson. If you're going to do that, you would have done that beginning of the offseason. So I don't think it's that either. So the only thing that makes sense to me is an injury.
Like one that we're not being just told of, and that will
Well,
be
of course. Why would they tell us?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that there's a possibility of that. I also think that having too many D-men going into camp is probably a good problem to have, and one that you can solve by liquidating some of the assets you have. Obviously, I'm always team don't trade Sam Girard, but you know, I think that
it's not happening.
Yeah, I don't think it's happening. I think if we would have seen it happen, we would have seen it happen instead of Byram, but obviously Byram is gone. So I think that I'd say the top 4 D-men are pretty much settled. But did the Avalanche get better in that defensive group, Ezra, to you in the offseason?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I look at the Shillington situation and I see a guy who they expected to get paid like $3 million, maybe $2 million somewhere else, who was available for $1 million. And they're like, look, we have a full blue line, but we got to get this guy in here because that's an insane deal. And once they get him in here, they'll figure out the rest of it. Shillington's good. DeHaan's good when he can play. Brandstrom has upside. It's a good bottom pairing, I should say, out of that mix. And if Malinsky can earn a spot too, great. Then you have a right-hander as well. I mean, I think they're well positioned here. And if they are thinking about like not adding another forward, right, then the forward group looks like a group that's set as well. And there's not an extra forward there. So maybe they do carry 8 defensemen and just let it roll. You throw, Brandstrom or Shillington as a 4th line winger. What's the worst that can happen? He's better than like, I don't know, some guy you call up who isn't worth giving ice time to anyway.
Yeah.
That's maybe a little crazy. But like, truly, you've got to get the best players in the system, not necessarily the best fit by position sometimes. And when a guy like Shillington's available, you pick him up.
Well, I think you're smart about that. It's kind of like akin to drafting, and like you have a guy on your board and that's who you've settled on, but then you get to your pick and someone that you just did not expect to be kind of lingering out there is still on the board, and you kind of have to contemplate, it's like, do I take the best available or do I take my need? I think that is a good assessment of kind of why Shillington might have come to be a part of the Avalanche system. I think that's really smart, Ezra. But Rudo, you mentioned that the writing is kind of on the wall for Malinsky with this kind of happening and going down. What do you think that he could do in camp, say, to kind of sway the Avalanche in terms of that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I do think there will be a camp battle, but I think it's mostly between Brandstrom and Shillington more than it is Malinsky. But if Malinsky shows out and plays real well, I think you guys are right. I don't think they'll waive him. He's probably the number 8 and rides on the roster until they decide to do something, if they decide to do something. He would really, really have to impress, I think, to draw into the starting lineup right away. But the conversation for me here is with the acquisition of Shillington. I think the Avs understand what they have in their lineup. Josh Manson, not a guy who usually plays 82 healthy games. Calvin Hahn, definitely not a guy who plays 82 healthy games. So at very least, you're probably drawing at least Shillington and Brandstrom into the lineup semi-regularly, and then Malinsky is maybe more of a 7 when an injury does happen. I still do wonder. I really, really do wonder, once some of the mysteries of the Avs cap situation with Nichushkin and Landeskog are a little more solved come November, if we start talking about trading one of those defensemen, but that's still months away. So I think those are realistically, Malinsky's outs are mostly out of his own hands, unfortunately, with what happens with the Avs lineup.
That's a good point, and it kind of corroborates Jackie's idea of, like, if the Avs were going to trade Manson, they probably would have done it already, and the fact that they aren't, and that they pay a hefty AAV for him, it's likely that they're going to say, okay, well, hopefully he can get into that 60 game realm, but in the event that he doesn't, we've stocked the cupboard full of, those bottom 6 and 7 defenders, and we can ride with those guys for at least 20 games, which, I hesitate to kind of like make a claim because, like you said, other than Malinsky, like you'll see these guys kind of take matters into their own hands. And Rudo, I want to go back to you for this one. When you look at Shillington and Brandstrom, what are their differences and kind of what are their upsides as individuals?
So this one is tough because I think I disagree with what the Avs see. I think the Avs prefer Shillington over Brandstrom. And I'm the opposite. If you look at the underlyings, so you mentioned, have the Avs gotten better on defense? I think because of Brandstrom, the answer is yes. His advanced analytics show him as at least good, if not better, than someone like a Sean Walker in what he's producing for on-ice results. So nice. Brandstrom really has that potential. And in a universe where we're talking about trading a defenseman for a winger in the top 6 potentially, if everything goes perfectly, Brandstrom can kind of fill the same archetype as someone like a Sam Girard. He has to play well. He has to prove that he can do that. But theoretically, you could see how he ends up being that guy on a second pairing if he breaks out and has the season that he might be capable of. As far as Shillington is concerned, for me, his fit is a little bit weirder on his play style. With that being said, he plays Avalanche hockey. The dude can fly up and down the ice. He loves to jump into the play. He can shoot the puck well. Easy guy to slot into your lineup every night, and I expect them to do that given they paid him that little bit more than someone like a DeHaan or a Brandstrom. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm a big a believer on his upside as some people. Some people really are encouraged by the time he had in Calgary and want to play him a little bit higher in the lineup with some good results he's had with some of the top-end guys in Calgary. But he certainly is an everyday NHLer at this point in his career. I still want to see the adjustment because he hasn't really fully gotten back to what he was before those 18 months that he missed in Calgary. So if he can get back to that level, maybe you're even talking about him as a guy that can fit in on your second pairing.
Wow. So that would be really, really nice because then you do have options come trade deadline time. If like, as you previously mentioned, the Nichushkin and Landeskog situation resolve in a way that's kind of not as positive as we're kind of hoping as Avalanche fans, then you do have options. Obviously, then you'll also have some cap space depending on how those situations resolve. So I'm kind of with you there. I like what I've seen more recently from Brandstrom. Obviously, with the 18 months off for Shillington, it's kind of hard to be a judge. But I agree with you in terms of play style. But Ezra, Rudo mentions that Shillington he plays quote unquote Avalanche hockey and he can implore that speed. Do you think that there's a really realistic opportunity for him to excel and maybe, like Rudo mentioned, get into that second pair?
Yeah, I do. I think both he and Brandstrom have a ton of upside within this system just in terms of their fit. DeHaan's more of a guy who's going to slot in on that third pair and stay there. But whoever is able to like show that they can be trusted by Bednar is the guy who's going to get more minutes. And I mean, I guess it's kind of obvious, right? He's the coach. Yeah. But one of those two guys is going to claim their spot. And I'm excited to see who it is. I do think whoever it is can rise, take some minutes from probably Manson, not Girard, just given who I would prefer to see on the ice more often. Yeah. But neither of them plays like Manson. So it'll be an interesting mix. I think the great thing about having extra depth is it gives you extra options, right? So the Avs don't have to stick to the hard 1 pair, 2 pair, 3 pair, and they never really do anyway. So now they've just got extra guys who they can mix in throughout with whoever needs a breather, getting a breather. It's going to be great.
Yeah. I'm with you, man. Like, Jackie, we talked about it last year a lot, and when the Avalanche traded Bowen Byram to secure that 2C role, we were concerned about the Avalanche giving up their competitive advantage, which was basically, I mean, you got Canada's top pair, Team Canada's top pair as your top pair, likely. And, the rest of the way down, it was looking really good for a moment there. And you said that was the Avalanche competitive advantage. Do you think that they've maybe reestablished that in any way, or are you still kind of on the fence?
Absolutely not. You're not adding guys under the Barry limit and saying that you filled the hole. No. Okay. If one of them really has like a Drouin like season, really establishes themselves in the role, I still would say no. It's obviously would be better, but no. If you think you're even close to that, then you're undervaluing what Byram brought to the team. So no, that's a hole that they're not going to be able to ever fill with one person because they don't have that guy in the system. And they certainly didn't sign that guy this summer. So the answer is definitely no.
Well, I mean, let me follow that up then with, has it gotten better at least in your eyes?
Well, better from what point? I mean, from the point
from the trade, yeah.
No.
No. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't want to sway your opinion. I just want to hear it. So that's fine with me. I could see where you're coming from with that, because like Byram is going to be a great NHLer, no matter where he plays, and losing that guy to shore up that 2C, maybe a necessary thing, but we'll see. I guess what's unfortunate about trades is they're only deemed that they worked if you win a cup, pretty much. If who you got in exchange for that helps you win a Stanley Cup, then it looks like the trade worked. Pretty much otherwise, someone's gonna have some doubts, and that's fine. I think that that's fair. But Rudo, just kind of staying on the securing 2C, is what Jackie's saying does that make sense to you in terms of losing Byram? Have the Avalanche improved and gone towards the direction where they were when their defense was their competitive advantage, in your opinion?
I mean, look, they're going to have Cale Makar for the next decade, and that's competitive advantage no matter what you say. So that part of it, honestly, is enough. If we're talking about their competitive advantage is the difference in their third pair or second pair in this case, yeah, sure. They probably took a hit to their second pair. I would rather have Bo and Byram on their second pair than not. But they also balance that out as solving that 2C spot, at least for the next 3 years with Casey Middlestat. So maybe they don't have the number 1 defense in the league and it's the number 5 or something, but maybe their 2C went from the 20th to the 5th.
Right.
So I do think that balances out. I think the Avs as an organization, especially over this McKinnon era, have learned that, hey, we've spent most of our time losing because we struggled to solve the 2C spot. And the one time we solved it effectively and the guy managed to keep himself from getting suspended, they won the cup.
Yeah.
So,
it's a very fair point. And I mean, I don't see Middlestat having that issue at all. What Middlestat's issue is going to be is, can he consistently perform? Can he add a little bit of
Duran? That's the question.
Well, can he be a little bit more of a finisher? I think is really, and more aggressive in terms of shooting, I think is what we'll see hopefully be brought out of him now with like a full camp and everything with the Avalanche. But Jackie, I mean, I love Jonathan Drouin, so you can't get me to not agree with you there. But I mean, that's just another story of the Avalanche system fostering career years. So I think if you look at Casey Middlestat, that's kind of on the horizon for him as well. If the Avalanche, if he's going to be a part of Power Play 1 and the Avalanche can figure that out a little bit.
But will he? I think
I don't know.
That role goes. I think Duran, he's the one that's going to play with McKinnon, and he's the one that is more likely to play on Power Play 1.
Right.
So
either way, I think he's slated to have a career year.
Like,
I mean, it's not a career year for Casey's not anything crazy, but I think he'll attain it pretty quickly. But let's move on a little bit since we're talking forwards. Let's talk about another forward who, Rudo, I tuned into you and Megan talking a little bit about this subject, which is Mikko Rantanen's pending re-signing. Obviously, his contract's not due yet, but it would be nice to get that thing inked before the season and camp start. Jackie, I'm going to keep this one with you. I'm curious as to, we had in our bold predictions that Mikko would hopefully sign before this episode, and it didn't happen. Are you a little bit more concerned as time kind of drags on, or do you think it's just about timing for the Avalanche and Mikko Rantanen?
I mean, I've said September all along. I didn't believe that Jesse was had this finger on the pulse of what the Avs were going to do imminently. So, no, I hadn't even thought about gee, why is it taking so long?
Right.
Taves and McKinnon signed right around training camp, so that's when I would expect it. If we get into the season starting and he's not signed, then that's going to be a question of, they've definitely passed the threshold that they did with McKinnon and Taves, so why didn't it happen for Rantanen? But as we sit here today on August 8th, no, it's absolutely not a concern.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think we were kind of getting ahead of ourselves. I got a little excited. Landeskog, he signed when he inked his big deal, basically a few calendar years from a couple of weeks ago. And so I was like, you know what? I think I'm onto something. Maybe the Avalanche sign guys on the same day, same
But
Sunday.
that was their free agent day.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
when the season was messed up. So he signed the
exactly.
literal 11th hour.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess I was wrong to be looking at that for a sign, but I think definitely we kind of got stirred up a little bit early with the Mikko Rantanen stuff. But getting back to you, Rudo, you guys were talking about kind of whether or not Rantanen's contract puts on display the next kind of cup window for the Colorado Avalanche. And I just kind of want you to maybe get to the hard points of kind of what you and Megan kind of came to in terms of that conversation.
Yeah. So realistically, if you're Colorado, you feel competitive with McKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar in the lineup.
Yeah.
You could throw pretty much 15 other NHLers in the lineup with those guys, and you're probably a playoff team.
Yeah.
Do you need to get competitive in other areas to really push for contendership? Yes. And the reality of that next era window, whatever you want to call it, Mikko's probably making north of $11 million on his next contract, in my opinion. So it's going to get more expensive. And then, 2-3 years down the line, Makar has his extension too. So they need to start finding value in guys like a Cal Ritchie ZLC, in guys like a Mikhail Gulyayev ZLC on the defensive side. They have to start doing a better job of taking advantage of ELC level players. And don't get me wrong, they've been extremely effective with cheap contracts for guys like a Jonathan Drouin, the original Nichushkin signing for a league minimum deal.
Yeah.
They've done a great job of finding value like that, but they need to start doing it with internal options as well. And I think they're fully capable of it. I don't think the window is closing anytime soon, but Mikko that next contract starts to put a little bit more cap pressure on the team.
Yeah. And I think it's important to consider this topic because a lot of people are like, it's win now. The McKinnon contract was the window and it's gone. And so, we're losing value. It's win now. Who knows what the future holds. I'm totally with you. Like, as long as you have those three guys as a part of your core. And I think even in the last window, maybe the three guys that were a part of your core for the majority of that time didn't include Cale Makar. It was Gabe Landeskog. And I think that's kind of where the tipping point was when you saw a combining probably of two golden eras for the Avalanche. One, Cale Makar came in, and once Mikko Rantanen really took that step in McKinnon's absence a few seasons back, where he just became a completely different player in terms of putting up points than he had been previously. So, I mean, I think it's important to consider this topic because you have to know, and I love the idea of being patient with these ELC guys and finding value there, because I think it's very important to get back to homegrown talent. As much as we know Mikko's and the Nathans and the Kales, like they're gonna be great players when you draft them based on their position and if you've done your homework. But where we're missing the real value is in those later parts of the first round when we picked. If we can get those guys further along and create them as the value players on the contract in terms of contracts, then we're really looking good. Then I do think we start to see another melding of two eras. And I think that would be really, really important for the Avalanche, kind of cementing themselves as a dynasty in this era. But Ezra, we're talking about ELC guys. We talk about Cal Ritchie. Where do you see the Avalanche finding value in ELCs in the near future?
Well, that's a really tough question because a lot of these guys that are coming up have long development paths. So in the near future, there aren't a ton of candidates for it. There's Nabokov in goal, who may need to come over and play a major role sooner than later if they're going to pull off getting cheaper in net. And there's maybe a Sean Barons, but it seems like they've given themselves a bunch of other options on defense, so he's probably more of a trade chip at this point.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to see in the Avs system a guy who's going to come in and be an effective ELC player beyond some of the college free agents who could maybe make their way up from the Eagles to the Avs to play some fourth line minutes or something like that. Jason Polin, Andre Pavel. But maybe even an Ivan who wasn't a college free agent, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. I mean, Cal Ritchie would be nice, but I don't think he makes sense really as a fourth line center, which some folks have talked about. So, you know, we'll have to see.
Well, I mean, when you talk about Cal Ritchie in the fourth line center, it's almost exactly the conversation when you talk about, as Rudo mentioned, Malinsky in that 6 or 7 D role, which is you have to kill penalties. And I just don't see that from Cal Ritchie, nor do I want to necessarily. Like, I think that there's a way to bring him about and play him in the NHL and insulate him a bit than, just to kind of like throw him to the wolves and hope he's your 4C searching for value. I'm with you. I think maybe it's something that we don't see quite yet in terms of adding someone maybe that's more ELC ready. But Jackie, you are our queen of bringing along the ELCs. So what about you? Are you with Ezra there and not really identifying one that kind of pops out to you?
Well, just because it's the Avs and it's like almost impossible for them to do it. So I mean, if you're gonna bet that they won't figure it out. But as far as Richie, I mean, if you want to find, I'm not saying us, but I'm just saying in general, if you want to find excuses to not play him, then you'll always find him.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't have to be a cut and dry 4C where he plays 5 minutes a night with Kivi Ranta and just basically wastes away for the year. Like, if they make a commitment to him, they could spot him up. They mix the lines all the time. There's always someone hurt. They don't even have their second line established going into camp. He could spot up on that line. He could get power play 2 time. And I don't think it's clutching the pearls to play your top prospect on the penalty kill. Is he going to be in the first unit? No. But if we see that they have second and even third units, how Bednar likes to have the third unit on that's a little bit more offensive leaning, because then when they go back to even strength, you have some decent players that can get the puck moving forward again. So if you want to, you can find ways to use him. You can find a role for him. It's just a matter of commitment. So I'd like to see them use him sooner than later. I think this year would be great. I think next year is absolutely critical. If they think that he's going to spend a year or more in the AHL, then it's not going to happen.
Yeah, you have to find the happy medium. And I know the Avs never do this, but give him 9 games. Give him the 9 games this year. You don't burn the ELC. He gets NHL taste, and then you can send him back to juniors and he can go to Worlds, whatever. Yeah. Those 9 games, though, I think they're so critical to a player like that of saying, hey, here's the NHL. This is what it looks like. You have to be able to keep up with this. We know you're going to go back and own juniors, but this is what you need to come ready for next year when we need you in the NHL.
Yeah. And I think that that's an important lesson to learn, especially like not to say Cal shouldn't have confidence. He's a very talented young hockey player. But if you look at a lot of the sound bites he has, he's very confident in making the jump. And not that I don't want that, but if it's baseless confidence, you definitely want him to learn, well, you got some work to do heading into next year. So I think I'm with you, man. Like, they don't do a lot of the 9-game stints, but I want to see it. I wouldn't mind if it was early on so that you can get him back to wherever he's going to be for a longer period of time. Heck, I wouldn't care if it was right out of the gates. You don't really know much about your schedule or about your roster early on anyway. And the Avs, I think, can afford to learn some things early on. And I think another person that fits that profile, which I guess isn't an ELC, but someone that we can find potential value in given his price and his potential role, is Justus Annunen. And we talked about him a little bit in our last episode. But Rudo, I want to get your kind of take on the Avalanche. Are they, and I actually tuned into another one of your shows and asked you this question. The Avs have a lot of back-to-backs and like 3 and 4 night stuff situation going on in the schedule. And we've been told repeatedly that the Avs are going to ride Georgiev just like they did last regular season. I'm of the opinion that they could afford to give Annunen a little bit more action, some more starts than maybe we're privy to, just to kind of figure out exactly where he is and if he can be a serviceable backup. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think 25 minimum should be
Yeah.
the start number for Annunen. Now, maybe you get 15 into that and he's completely collapsed and you have to make decisions. Hopefully
Right.
not. But at this point, I don't know what else Annunen can do to earn more opportunity at this point. So if you can't give starts to him at this point, move on and go get someone that you're willing to start.
Right.
He's too good for what his role has been to not do that. And we've seen Georgiev struggle when you tried to play him 62 games or whatever it was last year. He just ran out of gas and could not consistently provide what you needed in the regular season. So it makes no sense to me, a team of Colorado's caliber, to burn out your starter, whatever you feel about Georgiev. Don't make him play more than 55 games. You don't have to. You'll be fine if you give 5 extra games to your backup. You're a good enough team that you can just do that. So play in. And
yeah, I'm right there with you. Like if you can look, we got Brennan on the chat says Evan grew a beard. No, that's Rudo. I'm sure you know that, but yeah. So I'm with you. I think not finding out about Annunen is the only mistake with this, because the Avalanche, like you said, are a good enough team to not sacrifice too many wins in the event that it really is a learning experience. But if you find out that Annunen is a more than serviceable backup and you have him at the value you have him and for 2 years, the goaltending situation can be looked at a little bit differently. When Georgiev's contract comes up, you can decide if he's kind of who you're going to roll with, or if potentially there's somebody else on the market that you might want to come in and solidify your G1 role. So I think that's kind of the only realistic place that I see the Avalanche finding unforeseen value. Jackie, I know that your team Annunen and you want to see him get a real look at that backup. Ezra, I think you're kind of in the same party as that. So I think, I mean, over here at Mile High Hockey and a piece of DNVR, we want to see more of Annunen. So hopefully we get that next season. But the last thing,
Evan's the only Annunen hater. Evan's out here always talking about how much he hates him.
Well, I'm the one that I still don't believe
You
that
don't buy
it's just like guaranteed that Annunen's the backup. Like no one ever said it. We're just all sitting here assuming it. Do you really hinge the entire draft on Nabokov if you believe Annunen's your guy? Like I know it has also to do with they're probably not going to extend Georgiev. Yeah. But I still don't know. There's no vet in the system. If you were going to have Annunen your backup, why? Then you need a real vet third goaltender. That's not Mandolese.
That's the thing. I don't think they sign Mandolese if they don't see Annunen as the backup.
He's the Arvid Holm. Like he's just like
he's the third goaltender that you have sit on the bench and do nothing when someone gets hurt. That's exactly what his role is.
That's like the fourth, fifth guy. That's not your organizational third guy. I still think they're going to add someone. Now, maybe they they love to have a goalie clear waivers, then trade for him. They can leave him in the AHL. Then that makes Annunen the backup. Or they pick up someone on waivers and then Annunen has to go to the AHL. I still don't think we've seen the full story here. So maybe I'm the only one in Avs universe that doesn't believe it. But no one ever asked McFarland, hey, what's your depth chart? What are you looking at for your tandem next year? It's just all this assumption, and it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. So, hey, if he's the guy, cool. And then I agree, you have to try to work in some more starts. Maybe the Avs need to stop thinking they need to, like, kill themselves to win in the regular season. You know, that's not really the goal anymore here. You can be okay not playing Calvin DeHaan every single game that he's healthy for. You can be okay not playing Georgiev 60 times, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, to be fair, when's the real last time Avalanche fans haven't been a little bit concerned about goaltending? I mean, even the year they won the Stanley Cup, we were like, well, Kemper's out there with one eye. And
I just think it's funny how it was like this hysteria after Winnipeg game 1. It was like, he can't ever play here again. We're done. I don't want to see him again. I'd rather see Trent Miner than him. And now it's like, oh, okay, we're good with him.
Yeah.
We're fine. He did fine in the playoffs. We're fine with him. I was always like more in the middle, so my opinion really hasn't changed, but I just thought it was kind of funny how it was like this big disaster, and then now it's just like, okay, he can play for another year. It's cool, whatever.
Well, fandom is fickle, I tell you what. But speaking of fickle fandom, we've seen a lot of people turn on Landeskog as of late because he's not on the ice for the last 2 years. So, I mean, there's legitimacy to that. But, I mean, it's not like he's costing you anything in the meantime. So, neither here nor there, I guess. But we've seen some news from the NBA sphere, kind of the parallel to Landeskog's injury, which is in Lonzo Ball's knee. And he hasn't played in some substantial time, but he's been cleared for kind of just normal practice this season for the first time. Does that, I mean, I put it in the script here. Are there really parallels to draw, or is Landeskog's situation still less probable given the differences in sports? But when I read that out loud, I also wonder, and this is no slight to Lonzo Ball, it's just that I know more about Landeskog. I wonder if there's a little bit different because of the personality that is Landeskog, which not the kind of guy I see quitting without trying. So, Rudo, I want to kind of get your take on what you learn from the Lonzo Ball news and what you don't learn from the Lonzo Ball news.
Yeah, the Lonzo Ball thing is interesting. They had the same surgery and, difference in sports, whatever. But if you're looking at timelines, it's roughly 18 months for Lonzo Ball to get fully cleared for practice. So if you're going off of that and looking at the timeline for Landeskog, you're hoping Landy gets cleared for practice around the start of the season. If he can practice, if he can get up to full speed at practice over the first 2 months of the season, maybe you're looking at him back in January or February. And realistically, that's what the Avs need to know. They need to know if Landy is good to go by the trade deadline so they can have an appropriate trade deadline to fill the holes that they need. And, does Landy's cartilage take more or less punishment because he plays hockey instead of basketball? I'm not a doctor. I don't know the details of those differences, but with Landy, I would be shocked if he does not at least try. Maybe he tries and he can't do it and it sucks, but if he doesn't try, it would really blow me away.
Yeah, I'm with you. Plus, I can't live in a world without that moment where he does return to the ice at Ball Arena and we get to kind of really give him his kudos, because I think if we would have known in 2022 exactly what the situation was, that the story of the Stanley Cup from the Avalanche point of view would have been about that and about not knowing what the future held for Gabe Landeskog and how this could be the potential last chance he has to win a Stanley Cup. And I almost think it is better that wasn't the storyline, just for the sake of winning the series. But I'm with you, man. I just don't see it happening to where we don't get that night. Ezra, what do you think? I heard you kind of mumbling a little bit about the differences in sports.
Yeah, you're okay. I just think I agree with what everyone has said. I just was having a hard time not adding that. There's no way your cartilage takes more of a beating in hockey than basketball. Basketball is all jumps. It's entirely jumps. Skating hard is definitely an impact on your cartilage, but it's not the same as jumping. There's no question there for me. As aspiring physical therapist, I'm not one. I'm kidding. But I
thought you're gonna say aspiring pro basketball player. I was like, nice,
aspiring. Hey man, they should never have not let me join the basketball team. I'm really optimistic. This is such good news from Lonzo because it's right on the timeline that they said, right? Yeah. So there's not a setback. There's not any kind of unexpected developments with Lonzo. And that gives me a lot of hope for Landeskog, who, he's been dealing with setbacks this whole time. But since he got this surgery, he's on track. And that's really exciting. I'm optimistic.
Yeah, Jackie, do you share that optimism, or are you still wondering if it's even a thing?
I'm kind of in the belief that he's going to try, unless he's just so far away from even having it be possible. But yeah, I have a hard time seeing a guy at his age retire without playing a game. My concern has been this whole time is I definitely think he's going to play a game, but how many games is he going to play? I feel like once he plays, it's going to be this celebration, like we crossed the finish line, we have Landy back. And my concern is how long does it last? Because there's always going to be tweaks. There's going to be wear and tear. Is that going to be a really big problem? So if you told me Lonzo Ball played an entire season and was fine, then I'd be like, okay, wow, that's pretty cool. But the fact that he can practice, I mean, okay.
Right.
I really hope Landy can do a full contact practice at some point. So I don't know. Like to me, it's just not any new information. It's just
Yeah.
we're really gonna see where Landy's at camp, and now I don't expect him to be with the group. I think they made a conscious effort to walk it back. They're like, well, it could take to November. It's like, okay, well, we're already pretty much ruling camp out now. So we'll really be able to see, like, is he doing any kind of contact stuff? Is he still on the other sheet? That those are going to be, new data points for us. So this Lonzo Ball thing is not a data point for me.
Well, I'm kind of with you in terms of the concern on the maybe more negative side of the outcome, which is even if he comes back and he's back, but he's not necessarily a $7 million player, and he's got a modified no trade, which I don't want them to trade Gabriel Landeskog ever. So you're in a sticky situation where you're going to be paying $7 million for someone who isn't quite that within your lineup anymore. The good news is the cash side of things is kind of like he's cheaper in the later years. He's actually been most expensive last year and the year before in terms of cash. But obviously the cap hit stays at $7 million, but we also see the caps kind of steadily increasing. So that'll add some alleviation to that possibility. But man, I think
he'd at least get a couple years of like just sentimental. I don't think they'd give him the boot. Probably.
No.
For 2 years, I think.
He's going in the rafters, right?
Oh, that's a good question. He should, but I think that's a fair. I don't think it's 100%. I think there'd be a little debate. Probably though.
Captain of a Stanley Cup champion. I imagine that thing's going up there for sure. But let's keep it here with kind of the Landeskog and also the Cup window talk. With kind of Landeskog phasing out a little bit of the conversation as of right now, say in the world where Nichushkin and Landeskog don't work out, how do you want to see the Avalanche spend that money? I know it's kind of just total off-season question, but Ezra, we'll go with you. Like, how would you want to see the Avs spend that money? Would you want them to go with kind of the big splash approach, or what we've seen kind of from Seattle and company, where they go winning by committee style with their money?
Can I just interject? Do you mean like the deadline, or do you just mean more kind of like a big picture?
Kind of like big picture, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because my first instinct is to be like, I don't even know who's possibly available in this conversation, so that's a tough one.
More like the approach, I guess, is the question.
I think the approach, it makes sense. They already have their big three in under contract, so it makes sense to kind of fill holes in the lineup rather than go big game hunting. I think there's a lot of comparison out on the internet between the Avalanche and Toronto, for example, and people saying the Avs can't be the Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs never win because they've invested so much in their core. And I think the big difference between us and them is their core that they've invested in is an aging forward and 2 other forwards, whereas Colorado's is 3 young players coming up at different positions. You've got a defenseman, they're not young anymore, but they were when they were getting paid.
Prime. They're in the prime now, baby.
They're in their prime now.
Yeah.
And I think you can fill in around that kind of a group a lot easier than you can fill in around Toronto's group. So to me, I don't know if you wanted to, if there was if it was like the Jake Gensel conversation and Jake Gensel's available and you're like, we got to get Jake Gensel and then figure out the rest later. Okay, maybe. Yeah, he'd be a really cool piece on that top line. I guess I can see the logic behind that. But to me, it seems safer to go the route of filling in holes with guys who you can trust throughout your lineup.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Rudo, what are your thoughts? Do you think the Avs, next time they got a little cash in their pocket, are they going for the fill in the spots, or are they going big splash?
Go big or go home, baby. Let me ask you guys.
Okay.
Who was on the Pittsburgh Penguins' 4th line in 2019 when they won the Stanley Cup?
Nope.
19?
Yeah.
Not right off the rip. Like
exactly.
That.
My point.
Sure
exactly.
Everyone can remember who's on the Avs 4th line.
Avs 4th line, Claude Lemieux.
And it's not that those guys aren't important. It's not that they don't have big moments, but you win cups top down. You absolutely do. If you're giving up a premier player because, we can go get it, this 3rd line guy and this 4th line guy, you're unlikely to get as much value out of that unless you're really taking swings on potential upside, something like a Jonathan Drouin move. But to me, especially when you look back at the Avs 22 Cup and how unstoppable they were, it's because they went out and got big names. They had Andrei Burakovsky playing on their third line for most of that playoffs until he got hurt. The big names put you in the position to win. Of course, you need everybody to get it across the line, but why nibble around the edges if you have the opportunity to get a real potential lineup changer?
But
Go ahead.
Those big names that we're talking about, like a Burakovsky, Kadri, those guys were guys on effective contracts, cheaper end contracts, for excellent value. And I think that is what you have to be looking for. I'm not talking about third or fourth liners. I don't need a Max Talbot, who I think might have been on that Penguins team. Not 100% sure. But I don't need a Mike Rupp. That's the old Penguins, but whatever. Yeah. But I do think it's like, are you talking about Gensel, or are you talking about like, are you talking about, we'll just say Burakovsky, who's going to be like $4 million. Yeah. I think you probably need those middle tier guys more than those top tier guys.
Yeah. Sure, but the Avs have kind of already committed to those middle tier guys. Ross Colton, Miles Wood, whatever they end up doing with Logan O'Connor on his contract deal at the end of this year. To me, you have to sometimes make money or spend money to make money. And we're in a new world now. Over the last handful of years, we've lived in this cap stall era. And realistically, we're looking at an NHL that at the end of 2026 could have a $100 million cap. So you should have more money to play with. You maybe don't have to be quite as safe with your contract deals. Now, you can't go out and do stupid stuff like sign Darnell Nurse to a $9 million deal. But
shots fired.
But you have a little bit more wiggle room there. And, you know, if you're looking to maybe take a little more risk, maybe you're looking at someone like a Patrick Laine. The Avs have historically done very well with guys that have had some of those mental health struggles. So you could look at something like that. Supposedly Nick Ehlers is not particularly happy in Winnipeg. I love Nick Ehlers, so that would be fun. But if you have the opportunity, why not swing?
Yeah, and I got to do this for my true swinging for the fencers. What about Sidney Crosby? We still don't know about his situation.
Hey, when he becomes a free agent, I don't think it's happening this year, but who knows? He loves the 8.7 number, so just have it 870,000, right? Say exactly. Want another cup.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and to get back to the comparison to Toronto, there's another pretty big difference between the two, which is the banner. And buying into the big guys worked for the Avalanche at least once, and that's one more time than the Leafs have since forever ago, before I was born. Another shot fired. Just everybody out here catching strays today. But let's get into our final segment. And Rudo, one more time, man, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. You've been excellent, and we really appreciate your time, brother.
Talking hockey's always fun.
Yeah, so we're going to do it with one more thing. And of course, I'm always sending out free ads for companies that don't help us. But hey, we're going to spin this wheel. We'll do this first, and then we'll do our bold predictions. I've called it the Wheel of Where Were You? Or the Where Were You Wheel. And it's chock full of great Avalanche memories. We're going to spin this thing, and then we are going to talk about kind of where we were for that and our experience. So there's a couple of the names we mentioned today on today's show on this. We're spinning, baby. Ooh. We got, I like this one. Yeah, is this a great memory? I don't know.
It was supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. So
I have a modified answer for that one.
Okay. Well, let's go with you first, Jackie. So what we're talking about is on the Where Were You Will, when Nathan MacKinnon scored a end-to-end goal in Game 5, which at the time felt like the series clinching goal, and that the Avalanche had gotten the second round monkey off their back. Jackie, give me your alternate story.
I was not watching, so we'll skip that one.
Well, that's a quick one.
However, I think the better one is the Game 6 that the Avs won against St. Louis to actually win the second round.
Yeah.
And it was my birthday.
Nice.
I was in Aspen at the St. Regis watching in our room. And it was a very nice birthday present for me. Yeah, so that is a nice memory.
Well, since you're tying Game 6 into it, I'll give you mine. I was in Las Vegas with my wife and it was game 5 and second round. And she said that night, we're going to dinner and I'd better not see you on your phone watching the game. And I said, okay, fine, that's fair. What she didn't foresee was that the bar in Vegas that was attached to this nice steak and seafood restaurant actually was playing the Avalanche game just over her shoulder.
Perfect.
And so I watched the goal, in person in that moment at the restaurant and was very excited. Well, the meal ended shortly after. We got our room key and we went headed up the elevator. By the time I got up to the room and was sitting in the bed watching the rest of the game, the Avalanche lost. And I remember telling my wife, they're done. It's over. They're cooked. There's no way. And honestly, I felt that way up until that fateful moment in game 6. And just to make an even funnier story, but a brief one, was on the way back from Vegas is when game 6 was. So I was actually on the plane when the puck dropped, got in the car, driving my butt off. They're losing the whole game until I got onto my lucky couch. And that is right when the Avalanche tied. And then shortly after, we saw Darren Helm do what he did. So I like rolling this story into the next game. Rudo, where were you for Nathan McKinnon's miraculous end-to-end goal?
Yeah, as far as location, I'm pretty boring. I was at the DNVR bar in the studio for that entire
awesome.
2022 Cup run. But at that point, I had pretty much yelled myself hoarse in that game. And Nathan McKinnon hit that. What should be, like, when he retires, that is a goal that should be on his all-time clip reel. That thing is unbelievable in the moment, even though they go on to lose. But yeah, I basically couldn't talk and then watched the Avs collapse in game 5 and just sat there stunned on the couch. So not super fun.
You're like,
I have
turn
this
the
thing
cameras
when I'm extremely nervous, I can't watch. So by me saying like I didn't watch wasn't like, oh, I don't care. But I remember like I think I watched the beginning of it, but not at that point when he scored the goal. And I think my husband was actually had it on, and I think he was like, maybe you want to see something. And I'm like, no.
You're like Billy Bean in Moneyball. You're just like, you feel like you're the curse. As soon as you start watching, it's going downhill.
I did see like a replay or something, but like I wouldn't watch the rest of that game. And so then when they lost, it was just like whatever. So then I was like, I'm not watching game 6, and we had planned a dinner for my birthday, but it was over quick enough that it was still like the first period, and so I was like, fine, I just have to watch now.
All right, well, Ezra, you're our Cali kid. Where were you when Nathan McKinnon scored?
I was right here in Cali. I was on my couch, which is directly through this camera through that wall. But I think I might be just telling this as a story, but I'm pretty sure this is true. I think that goal was the first time my girlfriend saw me take my shirt off for no reason while watching a hockey game, which I do when I'm either very excited or very mad, and then I'm like, how did this happen? And I put it back on. So I'm pretty sure that was it. And then the next night, obviously, the Helm goal, I did it again.
Yeah, I was going to say
there.
The shirt didn't stay on long. Oh, man. So you took the shirt off because you were angry, or was it for the McKinnon goal?
No, for the McKinnon goal. I was so...
Then it stayed off because you were angry. Got it. Yeah,
and then it came back off moments later when they didn't win. But
well, the next time one of those moments happens, I'm tweeting out somewhere right now, Ezra is shirtless.
You'll be right.
Yeah, that's so great. Well, those are some great memories, and I'm happy we could touch on the good stuff here in the off season. And before we go, Ezra, I want you to be a part of my favorite part of our broadcast, which is our bold predictions. It's a little more difficult in the off season, but I think we can come up with some. Basically, we just find some ideas of things that we think might happen between now and the next episode, and then we hand out some X's and some D's. So I'll go through last week's guesses, which, Jackie, I think you said Nabokov signs, but I think that was you just think it's going to happen this year thing, not before this episode.
Well, I think because if he was going to, he would have done it before like KHL training camp and such. Yeah. So I think it was sort of a
this
then
week sort
prediction.
Of okay.
So you can say that it didn't come true. That's fine.
He did technically restructure his contract. So does that count?
But no, I'm going to take the X on this one.
Okay, and then you're right, because your guess into the future is that the Avs are just destined to have Martin Jones, which I think is hilarious. So I like that. I can't ding you or X. Yeah. Evan said that the fan vote for our top 25, which, by the way, folks, if you haven't gone to our website and checked out the top 25 under 25, I think we are into 21 or 22 now.
21 came out today.
Yeah. So head on over there. We rank the Avalanche players pretty much in the system 25 to 1 under the age of 25, which means Cale Makar has aged out of our top 25. He was a number one mainstay for the time he was under 25. So tune in or check that out on our website.
But they don't have an NHL player at 1 anymore. Spoiler alert. That's kind of shocking.
I know, isn't that wild? So Evan said the fan vote will have someone in the top 10 that's not in the Riders' top 10. I don't want to reveal any specifics, but I will say if my research is correct, I think he's right about that, which is as usual crazy. Ezra, you said
mine was about training camp.
Yeah, you said something about Nick Bonino. And
you were trying to guess the PTOs.
Yeah. I was guessing the random center PTOs that they were going to have. I said Nick Bonino, Chris Tierney, and I don't know
something with a something with a shart. With all
work shart. I
don't know. But he signed with somebody else.
Right.
This is pulling the curtain back onto the script here. Hey, if the altitude guys can get away with it, so can I. All right. But I mean, we haven't seen any PTO things like that, so I'm gonna have to give you the wrong buzzer on that one.
Hey, I don't deserve it.
If any of those names come up, though, totally.
This is for the future, man.
Yeah.
And then I said that Mikko would be signed before this episode, and that that did not happen. So since it's the time for a new week's worth of bold predictions, let's roll that track, baby.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
I call that bold talk.
All right. Well, Rudo, since you're our special guest today, I think I want you to make the first bold prediction. So what do you got for me?
All right. I have 2. When's your next show? Next week?
Probably 2 weeks. 2 weeks next
2 or
week.
3
we'll
weeks.
See. Yeah.
2 weeks. All right. I'll just say the Avs won't do a single thing for the rest of August.
Yeah.
I don't know how bold that is. But.
I was gonna say, I don't even have one for like the next 2. I mean, what possibly could you predict? So do you just have anything before I'd say like training camp or the beginning of the season? Just anything more kind of medium term.
I like your Avs won't do anything. What was your second one?
Just the season start count. Can I go that far? Is that
that
I think so. Yeah,
especially since you're an esteemed guest. We can circle back.
Cal Ritchie gets NHL games this year.
Okay, I like it.
Oh, yeah.
I would
not
like
to put
that
a number on
true.
it, but games.
Okay, even one would be nice.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to see the kid in some threads, man. It'd be awesome. Awesome thing to see. All right, Ezra, what do you got for me?
I still like my training camp prediction. I will add that all 8 of the defensemen we see as NHL defensemen right now will be on the roster at the start of the season.
I like that one.
Yeah,
too.
that'd be bold.
All 8 of them bad boys. Man, well, that would be good. That'd be a good thing for the Avalanche, I'd say. That would mean that they have confidence in all those guys. Jackie, what is your bold prediction?
I guess sort of on the Martin Jones thing. I think they're going to add a goaltender one way or the other, if either waivers or trade before the season starts.
Okay.
I don't think they'll sign. I don't know. If it's Martin Jones, they have to sign him. But they'll add one.
All right. Well, then all you're leaving me with is I don't know. It's only bold to me because of our conversation today. And my bold prediction is that Malinsky will, in fact, make the opening night roster of the regular season. How about that?
I won't ask how because I'm afraid of that answer.
Yeah, I was going to say, it'd truly be bold to see if we could figure out the injury, but that's also kind of like icky.
Let's keep this in a happy sphere, and I'll just say that somehow, some way, the kid earns it, and everyone stays healthy. That's the craziest, boldest of all those predictions. So that's my bold prediction this week, and we'll circle back to all these kind of when the season comes around. That way we can Rudo, we'll clip you and we'll be like, Rudo, here's your ding, or we'll just bring you back on so that you have to own up.
If
you know.
Richie plays in the NHL, we should have like an entire celebratory episode, and Rudo could come back.
He's gonna play like the last game of the season.
Yeah,
That's true. I guess it could hold true for the whole year. He didn't say the start.
Yeah, they're gonna Ben Myers him and just give him the last 9 and get our hopes up, and then we'll never see him again. Just kidding. But
can they do that? Would that be after the CHL season?
I think they couldn't.
Depends on if they make the playoffs or not. So
yeah.
Because they couldn't if they wanted him in the playoffs. But I mean, I don't know about all that. But
I have to think about that for a second. I think they
because he's signed.
He's signed.
Yeah, so he could.
But it would obviously, I'd have to
weird.
Think about that. I think they could, yeah, because he is signed. Just depends how long his playoffs last.
Yeah. Well, folks, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. There's actually 512 live viewers right now. Pretty good for an off-season episode. So we appreciate you folks very much. Rudo, before we let you go, what are you working on these days, man? And tell us anything you want the world to hear on your behalf.
Just toiling away, making YouTube videos as always. You can find it DNVR Sports on YouTube, or if you want to follow me on Twitter, DNVR_Rudo. If people want to talk hockey, I'm always down. So I'll be around.
Thank you.
I was going to say, that means we'll have you on more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes.
Absolutely. Pleasure.
All right, folks. Well, yes. Thank you, folks, for tuning in to the Mile High Hockey Lab. I think we'll end it there. And until next time, Rudo, we'll definitely get you on soon. But in the meantime, everybody out there, go Avs.
Thank you for tuning into the Mile High Hockey Lab.